The São João was a Portuguese ship known as a nau or carrack, sailing during the early 16th century, a time when the world was being reshaped by sea travel. This era is called the Age of Discovery, when European nations began exploring distant oceans to find new trade routes and expand their influence. Portugal played a leading role because of its strong navy, skilled sailors, and support from the monarchy. Portuguese ships regularly traveled from Europe around the coast of Africa to India and Southeast Asia. These journeys allowed Portugal to control the spice trade, which was extremely valuable in Europe. Ships like the São João were essential to this system because they carried goods, people, and political power across continents. The ship reflects a period when oceans were no longer barriers, but pathways connecting different parts of the world. The São João was one of the largest and most complex ships ever built during its time. Constructed from heavy timber, its thick wooden hull was designed to survive long voyages and protect against rough seas and enemy attacks. The ship had several decks, including storage areas deep in the hull for cargo and supplies. Above these were living spaces for passengers and crew, and higher platforms used for defense. Its tall masts supported enormous sails that allowed the ship to catch strong ocean winds. The size of the São João made it capable of carrying massive loads. In 1552, the Portuguese carrack São João ship departed from Cochin, one of the most important Portuguese strongholds on the Malabar coast, beginning what was intended to be a long but familiar return voyage to Portugal as part of the annual India armadas that carried spices, wealth, and passengers back to Europe. After leaving Cochin, the ship sailed south along the African coast, but as it approached the treacherous waters near present-day South Africa, it was caught in violent storms, driven off course by powerful winds and currents, and relentlessly battered by towering waves that shattered its masts and damaged its hull beyond repair. Eventually, the São João was wrecked along the wild coastline near the Port Edward region, leaving survivors stranded in an unfamiliar and hostile land. 500 souls survived, of them 300 were slaves. The captain, Manuel de Sousa Sepúlveda, his wife, the noblewoman, Dona Leonor, their 3 children, and his brother-in-law, Pantaleo de Sá, were among the survivors. Local people appeared in the distance a few days later, but did not make contact, possibly because they feared the strangers. But a few days later, a group of people leading a cow arrived at the area where the survivors were camped. Trade was attempted, but did not happen, and they left with their cow. The closest Portuguese settlement was at Maputo Bay, in Mozambique, many hundreds of kilometers to the north. The decision to start walking to Lourenço Marques was made, and 12 days later, led by the ship's pilot, André Vaz, their journey started. The captain and his family followed, as did 80 Portuguese passengers and 100 slaves. Further north, probably near the Limpopo River, they were attacked and robbed of their clothes. This was the undoing of Dona Leonor. Having survived a walk of over 1,000 kilometers and all sorts of hardships that a noble woman had never dreamed of in her worst nightmares of ever enduring, her nakedness was the last straw. She buried herself in the sand, refused to move, and she and her children died of starvation. Her husband, who seemingly had gone mad from his wife's actions, disappeared into the wilds and was never seen again. Those who survived the wreck faced a new nightmare. Injured, hungry, and exhausted, they found themselves in an unfamiliar and hostile land. With little food or supplies, survivors attempted a long and dangerous journey on foot, following the coastline in search of help. Many died from starvation, illness, or exhaustion. The shipwreck turned a sea disaster into a long human tragedy.